This is Randy Nunez from Between the Chalk Lines. Special guest Lillian Martineau from Connecticut. She is here to talk about baseball, softball, basketball, and going to Georgia Tech as a recruit. Um, Lillian, thank you for coming on to the show again. I know we've talked a little bit here over the
Yeah,
last week. How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, no, we love having, this is all baseball talk all the time. That's the slogan. And you've done not only baseball, but, like I said, softball and basketball
hmm
as
Yeah,
a high school and junior high athlete.
yeah.
So, just wanted to kick it off. You just told me you just finished basketball varsity, your last varsity season in basketball. Uh,
Yes.
how was it? How'd you do?
We actually had a really, really successful year. We had 11 wins and 9 losses this year.
Okay.
Um, but with the way the state tournament works out, it's really luck of the draw with some of the placements, and we just ended up playing a really, really good team in the first round. Um, So we unfortunately lost in states, but overall, it was one of our better seasons that we've had in my 4 years. So that was nice to end it on a really good note.
That's good. That's good to have
Yeah.
the finishing on a high note, like you said. And sorry to hear about the tournament and getting dropped out in the first round. It's a bummer, but you know, like I said, we're here mostly for the baseball and the softball portion of
hmm
your athletic career so far. Um, so I found your story because of something that I mentioned before we started talking. Melissa Mayu, who came from
hmm
France. She was playing baseball up until 16, 17 years old. Found, her way to the U.S. because she wanted to play baseball here, but no college would take her on to their baseball team. You had that issue 10 years ago. You were playing baseball in first grade, I believe. Is that correct?
All the way. Yeah, that's when I started.
It started?
Yeah,
But because there was no softball team in your town, correct?
exactly. Yeah.
So how did that start? Because I know that your parents are obviously a huge part of all of
hmm
this and your success and your academics and sports, obviously.
Yeah.
How did they get you onto the boys baseball team? Was it just
So since it was Little League, my parents let me decide what I wanted to do. If I
okay?
wanted to like drive to the next town over to play softball, or if I just wanted to stay in town. And I just wanted to stay in town. So there was actually one other girl in my who is my age who also played Little League. But she stopped at about 11 when we were about 11. Um,
Okay.
but I still played um,
All right.
when
Yeah.
she left. So then I was the only girl in the Little League. But they didn't have too much trouble with the Little League organization since it did make sense because they didn't have softball anyways. So
hmm Yeah. I've
yeah,
coached the league myself, and we've had
yeah,
one or two girls over the last several years.
hmm
I mean, it's not common to have girls on the
right,
baseball team, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
happens. It happens.
yeah.
Um, Is there anything that you would say to girls that are considering, playing baseball with the boys and, that maybe they're not sure about it, or they're afraid or.
Right. The afraid thing, I would just say again not to be afraid, which is easier said than done.
Mhm.
But most of the time when girls are considering both, it's because they're leaning towards baseball but are afraid to do it. Like in their minds, they're only considering both because they would rather play baseball, but there's that nervous aspect of it. So really, it just comes down to what you want to do and not what other people want you to do or what other people expect you to do. You just got to do what you need to do and what you want to do for yourself.
Great. That's great advice. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, you have to do what you want to
Mhm.
do. You can't let
Yeah.
any outside like
Mhm.
force trying to sway you one way or the other.
Yeah.
Just kind of just follow your gut feeling, And
Exactly. That goes for a lot of things in life and in
exactly,
school too. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's worked out for you.
Hmm.
I have to say that the last year and a half, you've have had a busy year and a half at high school. Varsity team with the boys baseball, being a utility player, and then doing softball varsity, basketball varsity, and
Yeah.
then last year was when you made the switch to full
Hmm.
time softball.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through that a little bit? Like, what
Sure.
was through your mind and
Yeah.
obviously heart that went?
Right. So spring of junior year, so last spring, I
Okay.
was still on the baseball team for my
Okay.
school. And I was also at the same time still doing travel baseball. So, but right when school ended was when I went to my first softball camp. And the main reason I did that was because I was very interested in the opportunities that would start arising for me, because it became more and more clear that I had a better chance at playing a competitive Division I school, maybe higher academic with softball than I would have with baseball. Because having a good academic school was very high on my list for me,
Mm,
and making sure that I could get the degree I want for post college and everything. So over the summer, in the beginning, I was still doing softball and baseball. So I would travel down south for a softball showcase or something. Then when I would come back to Connecticut during the week, I'd still be playing baseball.
okay.
Um, but the more the summer went on, the more my focus was for softball recruiting rather than baseball recruiting. But I was still committed to my summer travel baseball team, of course. So I wanted to finish the season with them and everything.
Uh, so, and I saw this in an article that you did
Mhm.
last year, almost this same time, it was about April
Yeah.
last year. You said that you wanted to follow in the footsteps of Olivia Pichardo, who went to
Mhm.
D1 school in Brown University and ended up making the men's team there.
Yeah.
So your kind of view on things just shifted, and you felt that you had a better shot at getting into a good school through softball rather than
Yes.
baseball.
Exactly. And I think I still am following in her footsteps and sharing a message that she's sharing still. Even though I am playing softball now, I still feel very passionately about making sure girls feel comfortable playing the sport they want to play, and that they're always protected to have that choice, and just to help girls in sports in general. So I would definitely say that message is still important to me, and something that I like to get across to girls, because even though I'm not playing baseball in college, I still played it for the majority of my life.
I was just
So
about
it's
to say.
still, yeah, yeah, it's still a very big part of me. And I'm extremely happy for Olivia that she got accepted into Brown, was able to walk onto the team. But for me, it just wasn't something I was open to doing. I'm a big planner, and so I wanted the security of being committed to the school for a sport and not have the chance of walking on and or trying out to walk on and
Hmm.
not getting on the team,
Yeah,
or settling for a school just to play baseball there that maybe wasn't uh, my favorite school academically and
yeah,
location wise.
yeah. I understand that. It's
Yeah.
definitely you wanted that safety net, kind of,
Hmm.
just knowing next year I'll be at Georgia
Yeah.
Tech, going to school and playing on the girls, the women's softball team.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
so you won't have to fight and claw your way into the games and every
Hmm.
inning that you're pitching or every at bat that you have. Um,
Exactly. And I've been doing that for the past 15 years.
I was just
And
gonna
so,
ask.
right.
Yeah.
That, so I was just at the point where I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. And that's what it comes down to, again, not letting outside opinions affect the decisions you make. My parents and I talked about it for a long time. Me and my coaches talked about it for a long time, how I don't have to prove to anyone that I'm good enough to play baseball. or I'm good enough to play softball. I'm just gonna pick what's best for me.
Mm-hmm. And at Georgia Tech, what are you looking to major at right now? Going there.
Yeah, so it's abbreviated as LMC. It's
Okay.
literature, media, and communications.
All right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like, is there a certain focus on in the literature major?
So I'm hoping
Oh,
to become a show host, like an MLB Network type of sports
yeah,
talk show host. Yeah, I'd be super interested in that and maybe some sideline reporting along with it.
that would be a.
So I want to stay connected in like the sports world reporting and everything like that.
I was only going to mention it. That would be a wild circle because you were actually featured on LB
I
Network.
was on
Uh,
MLB Central, I believe. Yeah,
Central, yes. Sorry.
yeah,
And they were showing off your swing, and
yes.
I can't remember who was the host at the moment, but he said, "Watch out, Yanni Finch, because of your swing." And she's
Yeah, I
obviously
believe it was the segment was called Sandlot to Show,
okay.
where young kids would submit their videos to try
Oh,
and get featured on the show.
that's
Yeah,
cool. So you submitted that, they didn't just find
I
you,
did. Yeah,
but
yeah, that was really awesome.
yeah,
My parents were like, "Oh, you're on TV."
that is cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of Jenny Finch, she's obviously this great
Hmm.
softball player who's got medals, and
Yeah.
softball is back in the Olympics in 2028. Is
Yeah.
is that something you ever considered possibly? Trying out for Team USA?
I until obviously like just switching recently, that
Mm.
wasn't something on my mind.
Yeah,
But
now
I
it's
think,
probably something.
right, but I think something like that, if the opportunity arises, I would definitely have an open mind for it. There's no need to shut it out or
Yeah.
reject the idea before it's even presented to me.
Mm.
So not everybody gets an opportunity like that.
Mm.
And I think it'd be really awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait for
Yeah,
the Olympics in 4 years
I know.
for baseball and softball.
I know.
Um,
Right, because it's
it's
not just about the players, it's for the sport as a whole,
exactly.
for everyone to enjoy it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you're representing your own country, and we get to see
exactly.
other countries being
Hmm.
represented. And I don't know why the Olympic Committee took it out, but I'm just glad that they put it back in.
They put it back, and
Yeah,
that's what's important.
exactly. Um, so I know that you're obviously now kind of set in softball.
Hmm.
We kind of fast forwarded through the entirety of you going, from first grade
Yeah,
to high school in baseball. Can we talk a little bit more about the baseball side, if you don't
sure.
mind?
Yeah,
I know obviously you probably had to, like we said, you had to show everyone that you were capable
yeah.
of being a baseball player at every single level. Every year you got older, it was a little bit tougher.
Hmm.
Um, how was it? Did you have good coaches that supported you, fans, your teammates, stuff like that? You know,
Hmm. I would say once I started to play travel baseball, so right when I
okay,
turned 12,
okay,
I started on the 12U team, was where I really found that supportive family team environment. Um, I found a really amazing hitting coach early on, and he has always been there for me and supported me throughout the years. So once I went into that travel world, leaving Little League and the people just restricting myself to only people in my town, branching out, meeting new people from across the state,
uh,
I started to find teammates that I played with until last summer. So
that's great.
it was really amazing to see all of us grow and find where we're going to college.
Yeah,
But as you said, every year definitely got harder. The From a physical standpoint, the younger you are, the more even it is. And then every year the boys got taller and stronger, so I had to keep up with that with my training, and how much I practiced outside of the team practices was very important. The work I was putting in by myself was definitely greater than the majority, if not all, the other players on my team, but I
mm,
had to do it or else I would fall behind, unfortunately, just because of the biology of it. But I'm definitely
Yeah.
grateful for that at the
Hmm.
same time, even though it might sound terrible, like, oh my God, you had to practice
Yeah. More.
like every day, if not twice a day. But it was beneficial to me. And I always say that I would not be the softball player I am if I didn't do
Hmm.
all of that with baseball, 1000%.
Definitely. And you're right. I mean, I see you
Hmm.
posting videos on Twitter, or sorry, X now, and not Twitter
Right.
anymore. It's X. Of you batting in the batting cages. You have a batting cage at home, right?
I
You
have two,
know, you
yeah.
have two
So
batting
I
cages.
have,
It's probably more
yeah,
than
I
some
have
of the
one that's
guys.
on cables in the garage that can be pulled out,
Uh huh.
and then we pull it away. And then I have one that's just like a permanent cage in
Okay.
my yard outside for the summer.
That's
So I have
nice.
my winter cage and my summer cage.
That's definitely nice to have. You'll probably
Yeah.
start using that summer cage in a
Yeah.
month or so. Um,
Yeah.
and so, what are the I would say like highlights of your baseball career now that it's over? Baseball
Mhm.
is kind of over, unless you do like some co-ed like
Right,
baseball
right.
league in the future. Now that it's done and you've done it for 10 years or so,
Yeah.
what was the highlight of your baseball career?
Highlights, I would just say in general, going back to the bonds I've created, I
Okay.
don't necessarily, I mean, I definitely have some specific memories of being with my team, hanging out with them on the field and off the field. Practices together, of course, were fun. But overall, just the bonds and the friendships I was able to form that I still have today. Actually, like an hour before this, one of my teammates from baseball who's in college
Yeah,
texted all of us that he had a really great first game as a freshman. And
that's
so
cool.
we're all still very connected. And that is my highlight is
Yeah,
just all of our friendships and honestly, all the times we spent and still spend together off the field um, are
just
fun.
being.
Obviously, we've had great times with games,
Yeah,
winning.
yeah,
2 summers ago, we won a firecracker tournament together.
that's cool.
So, yeah, we had big wins and big successes on the field, but the bonds and everything that last after the game's over.
Yeah, definitely. You can be a family. I mean, like I talked to
Mm-hmm.
some of my little league friends
Yeah,
from
yeah,
10, 15 years ago.
hmm,
So I totally understand that
yeah,
feeling and
yeah,
of the growing up and having bonds and just creating family, a little family of yourself. Just even though you could
hmm,
be thousands of miles away from each other, you could
right,
still
right.
feel like you're super connected. Um, so going to Georgia Tech, what do you have a bar set for yourself, like that you want to accomplish certain goals, or you want to be at a certain level on the team?
Goals for me personally, I just need to keep training the way I train. Of course, I need to
It's a lot of training.
adjust to how, their practices run and their training run, but I definitely don't want to lose my motivation and like that intrinsic motivation to go out and work hard, even if it's on my own in the cage off the tee. That's one of my goals off the field. On the field, I'm trying to get to that All American status. I want to
Yeah,
help my team win an ACC championship, hopefully. I know my recruiting class I believe in the fall, the rankings came out, and we're the number one ranked recruiting class in the ACC for our um, grad year. So that's really awesome.
that is.
I, yeah, I want to become that All American status, and hopefully we can win an ACC title. And who knows how far we can make it nationally as
Hmm.
well.
And I've seen in just about everything that I've read or watched, they you get to tend to be kind of put into that utility role
Hmm.
player, bunch. But I've
Right.
seen that you're a pitcher, you're an outfielder, you're an infielder. What position do you want to stick at in Georgia Tech, or are you gonna
Yeah.
try and be that utility player that can do
So,
everything?
right. I don't mind moving around the field at all, because it's definitely, if you have that hot bat, you're
Mm,
gonna they'll find a spot for you in the lineup, obviously, and a spot for you on the field. However, I do take my defense very seriously, and I'm
okay.
very particular with how I feel and everything. And I
Uh,
adjusted the way I play defense for the softball field because it definitely is different
mm,
timing, speed compared to baseball. Shortstop is my main focus for right now and for high school. That's also where I played the majority of my innings on my travel team over
okay.
the summer and the fall for softball. But in baseball, first base was my main position. And so I am still comfortable there. I occasionally get put at first or in the outfield in softball, which are all positions I can play,
Uh,
but I tend to focus my training as a shortstop because I definitely think that's also one of the more athletic positions in the field. And
yeah.
so if I can get the footwork down and the arm actions down for shortstop, a lot of it can translate to first base to the outfield. So,
All right. And
yeah.
you mentioned the difference between baseball
Mhm.
and softball. Can you run us through that? Because this is obviously mainly a baseball focused podcast channel, but
Yeah, yeah.
can you run us through the differences between baseball and softball real
So
quick?
even from so even when I was playing baseball and right, first base was my main position during
Yeah.
practice, in all the infielders are usually together and we all are in one line, we all take ground balls together with footwork like a shortstop, like a second
Mm,
baseman. And while the general footwork is the same and the pivoting and the angles, the arm actions have to be very different. In
okay.
baseball, you typically have more time to have the ball in your glove and take your throwing hand into your glove and pull it back.
Yeah.
Whereas my travel softball coach has been teaching me to kind of bring the glove up so that you're just like
Mm,
this. So it's almost like you're always doing a double play arm action
okay.
in softball, because baseball, when you're turning two, it's that quick, short movement.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 in softball, you need to do that as well. Backhands obviously are an exception. Another thing would be when there's a slap hitter, how
Okay.
close the infield moves in was something I had never experienced before. And in softball, generally, shortstops are like a foot behind second base. That line, if you drew a
Yeah. Yeah.
line up base, like a foot behind, sometimes even with it. But I learned for me, because I had that baseball background, I can be much farther back
Yeah. Yeah.
and either charge it and make the throw or also cover more ground because the distance between shortstop and third base is much smaller on the softball field compared to baseball.
Oh.
And so balls that were in the gap on the ground on the softball field, I was getting to with
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
no problem. And now, granted, you don't always have the time to make the throw.
Hmm.
I'm moving that far because the runner also has a shorter distance, but my coach would be like, I'm just glad you stopped that. Like that could have been to the outfield.
Yeah. You just
So,
stole base from the runner.
yeah, exactly.
You save
So that
more
was
than
like a
that.
nice adjustment, but the speed is the main part
Uh,
because that affects everything else. How many steps you can take after you field it. Again, how long your arm can be if
uh,
you turn two, if you don't. That's because baseball, there's more double plays because I think, at least from my experience with travel,
uh,
because the runners have a much longer distance to go. Like the
yeah.
ball
No.
can beat them very
Okay.
easily in baseball, but softball, it's not so much.
All right. And obviously, like we said earlier, you were on LV Central. Get your
Hmm.
baseball swing was getting analyzed. What kind of hitter do you say you are? More of a contact live drawing hitter or a power hitter? Get up
Um,
down the line.
I would say gap to gap is a good word. I look for more consistency. While I do hit the ball far, like I had the ability to hit home runs, and obviously I'm not upset at myself if I hit a home run. My main goal is to be a consistent hitter. And so if that means hitting a hard ground ball in between shortstop and third to get an infield single, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I can not manipulate my swing, but I try to be as conscientious as I can about the situation.
Okay.
And so I might look to try to really not attempt to hit a home run, but I might be like, okay, I can take a really big swing,
Yeah.
one strike, no strikes. But once it's two strikes, I definitely follow the shorten up rule, line drives, hard ground balls.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely depends on the pitcher,
Yeah.
with what I'm going for personally as a
Okay.
hit. But my main goal is consistency. And so if that means hitting a bunch of doubles or singles in a game, as long as I'm getting on base and helping my team, uh, I just try to be as consistent as I can.
Good. Good. And talking of pitching, obviously there are a myriad of different ways that you can
Hmm.
see a pitch in baseball. You have, your overhand, 3/4, submariner.
Yeah.
But now
Yeah.
softball is entirely different game.
Oh, yeah.
Pardon the pun. It's just one way, uh,
Yeah.
seeing the pitch. Is that you think helped you in a certain way on focusing on just a single point from where the ball is going to be released as far as a hitter?
So it's sometimes hard to say because, like baseball, not every pitcher has the same arm slot necessarily.
Okay.
While it is all coming from here,
Yeah.
some girls tend to be maybe a little farther away from their body, maybe a little bit closer. I would say the windup is definitely so for baseball, every pitcher comes to some sort of leg kick
Yeah.
and they bring their arm to some sort of window. So
Mm-hmm.
I would always just look at this window here, even if it was down here, okay, there's a window of the hand, like
Yeah.
elbow to the hand, and just kind of draw a square there.
Okay.
So from a timing aspect, that was easier to do with baseball, no matter what the windups were, right? Because some
Yeah.
kids have crazy windup,
Yeah.
slide
Definitely.
step, whatever, right? They go over the head. All of
Yeah.
them come to this point.
Yeah. Yeah. They do.
It's just, but with softball, the speed of their windup and the speed of their arm definitely changes pitcher to pitcher. And
Okay.
so you have to adjust that timing for every pitcher. Even if, let's say, you have two girls that are both throwing 64 miles an hour consistently, but if the speed of their windups are different, that timing adjustment has to be there because there is such a shorter distance between the mound and the plate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your timing's really gotta be on point because of
Okay.
that lack of distance.
That makes a lot of sense.
That makes
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah, it does. It
right?
does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
um,
kind of a lot.
no,
In
no,
my
no,
mind,
it's
it
good.
makes
It's
sense
good.
because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've never had it explained like that, so that I'm glad that I have you too, who's had
Okay.
all of that experience between
Yeah.
baseball and now softball. So it's a great way to have that explained here on the podcast for everyone and myself as well.
Yeah.
I'll admit that I don't know a ton about softball, so
That's
I'll
fine.
definitely have
It's
to watch a lot more of it.
Yeah, it's the little things that you don't necessarily think about
Mm-hmm.
that will make a big difference. Like I was saying, the timing of the windup.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, this girl is moving her legs a million miles an hour, but then the ball comes out of her hand and it's not so fast. Or it's the opposite, right?
Yeah,
She has a super slow windup, but then all of a sudden
it is
she's released the
gunshot.
ball
Yeah.
from her arm. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So that's the difference between a baseball pitcher and a softball pitcher.
yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Uh, all right. Well, I think we covered the majority of um, all the big things I wanted to cover at
Okay,
least. Just want to do a um, quick pitch questions. A few
okay.
just little basics things, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Favorite baseball team?
New York Mets.
New York Mets. Okay. Favorite food?
Crepes with Nutella.
Crepes me with Nutella. Okay,
Yeah.
gotta make sure. Favorite band or artist?
Hmm. Absolute favorite right now. This is so hard. I would say at this very moment, my favorite is a rapper.
Okay.
21 Savage is my favorite at the
Savage.
moment.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll have to look them up. And then finally, what gets you up every day to go to the gym or practice or swing and just get better than the day you were the before? This is a big one for me.
My
So what?
my goals, to be honest, about the future, and that might be a little basic, but it's true. I just have to remind myself what I'm aiming for isn't easy, right? Even though it's not baseball anymore, that doesn't matter. That
Mhm.
doesn't mean being ACC player of the year is just like a piece of cake because it's softball. It's not, because all the girls playing softball in college right now are talented. And so I just have to remind myself, like, if you want to be ACC player of the year,
Uh-huh.
you've got to get up, you've got to go to the gym, you've got to hit today, you've got to throw. And sometimes it changes, but it's really myself that I'm also competing with, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
My
mentally.
expectations for how I want my swing to be, you know, hey, like telling myself, I've got to improve this today. Or just even at the gym saying, I need to up this lift by 10 pounds. I need to up this lift by a couple of reps today. Um, Small things like that definitely make a difference. And it feels great after you've accomplished that. Like having a new PR at the gym
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
does something to my mind
That-
that brightens my day. And so while doing these things are helping me in the long run, they also make me feel good in the short term, which is really where you have to find a good balance. You have to have goals that are challenging, but goals that are challenging for something that you love.
yeah.
If I didn't love softball and I didn't want to make myself better, I'm sure having a great day of hitting wouldn't make me feel as good as it does,
Yeah. And
you know?
achievable goals, I think too.
Right, exactly. You need to be realistic with yourself, but at the same time, changing your habits can
Mhm.
like get you to increase your goals, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
something that might be unrealistic for me right now might be realistic for me in a year if I work towards it.
Definitely, definitely. Just
Yeah.
baby steps. You gotta
Mhm.
make your way to
Exactly.
make your way to that
Exactly. Mhm.
finish line per se.
Yeah.
All right. To wrap up, is there anybody that you want to shout out?
Definitely, yeah, everyone who supports me on my social media platforms, who's amazing, like Jeff Fry, Wade
Okay.
Boggs,
Wade
Missy,
Boggs, that's a
they're
cool name.
always supporting my social media. So it's fantastic to have so much support, and just my family and my friends
Okay.
who, as we said a couple times, are the best behind the scenes people
Yeah, definitely.
who help me mentally, athletically, academically.
Uh,
So
and what are your socials for the people that are listening and or
oh
watching
yeah.
so they can follow you?
So my Twitter is Lily_Martineau.
Okay.
And then my LinkedIn and Instagram are just Lillian Martineau, just my name. So,
Lynn Martineau and
yep.
or Lily_Martineau on X.
Yes.
Yeah, I gotta remember
On
that.
X.
I know,
I
I know.
keep
I
saying
keep
Twitter.
forgetting too. I keep calling it Twitter.
Everyone knows what you
Yeah,
mean, so
yeah.
it's all right.
I get it. I get it. Well, Lillian, thank you for joining us on Between the Chalk Lines, all baseball talk, and now softball talk, all the
Yep.
time. So, definitely had joy with you on the show, and hopefully, maybe in the future when you are ACC champ or student of the
Yes.
year, we'll have you back on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Huh?